John, we have a surprise team in the playoff race this year, at least through 2+ months. It's the Kansas City Royals. We have their president of baseball operations, JJ Piccolo.
Yeah, happy to see JJ on today. Should be a good guest. He's engineering what could be one of the greatest turnarounds in baseball history. People may not remember they lost 106 games last year. Right now, they're, I think, 12 over, 11, 12 over as we do this. So that is quite a turnaround.
Yeah, 36-25, same point last year, 18-43. We'll talk to him about that transformation, which includes someone we know well, Seth Lugo, who they signed as a free agent, who's pitched into himself into the Cy Young Award conversation. John and I are going to come up with our all-star teams and see where we disagree. We haven't told each other these teams yet. I hope we don't agree in too many places. I hope we have some good discussion and debate, a fight or two. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we're getting closer to that time of the year. I used to love it. I'm going to have to really test my memory as a kid when the cardboard, narrow all-star ballots would come out with the Chads, and you'd poke at them, and who were your favorite players, and you'd fight with your friends on the street. No, I think these should be the starting outfielders, etc. So we're not kids anymore, John, but we're going to try to see after 2+ months who we think are the all-star players here. And I do think some of these positions, what's fascinating is how bad some things are in baseball right now. I don't think one of those positions is catcher. Let's see where we by the way, for our listeners, we didn't discuss it beforehand. John doesn't know mine. I don't know his. Hopefully we don't agree on all these slots. Who are your two catchers?
Well, I'm going to go with William Contreras from the Brewers for the National League catcher, even though he had a little bit of an argument with a friend of the show, Tommy Pham. I think Contreras has been the best hitter out there. And the American League, one of my personal favorites, Sal Perez, I think he's been fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, we agree in both of those. And I will say just one thing to mine is the way I think about it. I think you do also. I think we've talked about this someplace not on the show in the past is tie goes to an all-star, somebody who people want to see or who has history. And so like for any Twin fans that's going to tell me about Ryan Jeffers or something like that, Sal Perez, it's close enough. I'm giving it to Sal Perez. First base, John, who do you got?
Well, National League was a toss-up for me. We may not agree on that one. I went with Freddie Freeman, and I went with Naylor from the Guardians, and the Guardians have been just incredible. But I'm going with Freeman and Naylor.
Yeah, so we do disagree. I went with Bryce Harper in the National League. I went for the power and a little bit. I was big a star as Freeman is. I went for star power there. I think it's close enough that I do it. I think he's been surprisingly good on defense. And I thought it was close enough in the American League. I looked at Naylor. I looked at Mountcastle. I'm going to go with someone who's close to a star. I'm going to take Vlad Guerrero Jr., who might not be where he was as an MVP, but this is one of those positions that's way down in the American League. And so I'll take the guy who's at least a star in that group. Second base, John?
Second base, I am going with a Bryce there. Bryce Terang has been great with the Brewers. A lot of stolen bases, great defense, and Altuve in the American League. He slowed down a bit, but he's still Altuve.
Yeah, I took Altuve. Look, I like the WAR metric to help, but I think it does overinflate Marcus Semien like crazy, who I think is an exceptional player. But give me Jose Altuve 6 days a week, and certainly on the Tuesday of the All-Star game. I was Terang, and then we sat next to each other yesterday at the ballpark, and I watched Ketel Marte hit 2 homers, including a winner off of Jake Diekman, and it was I was like, who's the right answer there? And I love Terang as a young player, but I'm going to go with the veteran in Marte. Shortstop?
All right, even though there are so many great shortstops, this was easy. Did not take me long. Mookie Betts and Gunnar Henderson, 2 MVP candidates. I think Betts is leading in the MVP. Gunnar Henderson probably behind 2 Yankees, but right there in the conversation.
Yeah, we agree in those places. No need. It was Henderson versus Witt. I think Henderson leads, but we should throw in Anthony Volpe's having quite a strong first half also, and might end up getting picked as an alternate there. Third base, John?
I went with Bohm, and I mean, it's got to be Jose Ramirez, I think. Those are my 2 picks.
Yeah, we have no disagreement there. Again, like Westberg's numbers might be slightly in league with Ramirez, but it's Jose Ramirez and Bohm has really had. That's again not a strong position with Arenado and Machado taking such a step backwards. That's because Bohm's had a nice year, but he hasn't had a typical all-star year for a power position third baseman type. But no Machado or Arenado in this conversation, so I think he gets
Holmes
it.
been good though. I mean,
Yes,
very clutch. His
yes.
defense has vastly improved. He's been very, very good. A lot of the
But
Phillies have. Phillies and the Yankees have been pretty darn good all around.
so before National League outfield, like this was a position where when I started to dig into it, I was like, holy crap. And
Yeah,
I think the holy crap is about that Harper and Betts now play different positions.
right.
Juan Soto got traded to the American League, and Corbin Carroll, who we all thought was going to be a star, has been one of the worst players in the National League. It's taken and Acuna started poorly and now is hurt. So we've taken like five of the obvious guys we would have thought would usually make this, and they're
Right.
off the chessboard. So who are your three?
Well, first of all, I will add that a lot of teams could use Juan Soto, so he's in good
Yeah,
position with all these teams really not doing great in the outfield. I mean, Profar is having the best year, so I'm going to
right.
have to go with Profar. Yelich maybe not have the at bats at this point, but he's been really good when he's played. And Tatis's defense puts it over the top for me. Those are my two Padres, believe it or not. Very unexpected trio, but that's it.
Yeah, I did Profar, Tatis, and Chisholm. Put a center fielder on the team. He'll probably end up being the Marlins rep because they'll need somebody. Look, the American League, I think, was the easiest one. I'll
Yep.
just go first because I think you might be able to make an argument. I guess Henderson and Witt are in it, but like Soto, Judge, and Tucker could finish 1, 2, 3 in the MVP running. I would assume. Is that your outfield?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they've all played great. Tucker on a team that hasn't done well. Obviously, Soto and Judge on the team that's got the best record in the American League.
Yeah, I think Soto and Judge are 1-2 in the MVP right now. So that doesn't
Yeah.
happen a lot, and I think that will happen. I mean, if it stays this way,
Yeah,
yeah,
long way to go.
yeah,
DH feels like it's obvious in the National League.
yeah.
Questionable in the American League. Go ahead.
Well, Otani, and then I cheated and put Bobby Witt Jr. in there as a DH.
How did we do the same thing? We
Oh,
did
is
the
that
same
allowed?
exact
I don't know
thing.
if that's allowed. He's not
Yeah.
really. He's a great shortstop.
It's
but-
not allowed. The sneaky thing. We both thought of the same sneaky thing because
Yeah,
we
well,
wanted to
yeah.
get Witt on the team because he's probably in the top 5 for MVP, and it felt
Absolutely.
wrong that he wouldn't be on the team. And the DHs suck in the American League right now. We'll say this: it's Otani in the National League. Ozuna is having a great year for Atlanta, and he's at
Yeah.
least forces you to think about it for 3 seconds before you say it's Shohei Otani, and it's got to be Shohei Otani. But if
Right.
Ozuna was in the American League, that would be a layup for me. Starting pitching, I did something a little different. Let's see how close we get.
Well, I went with Ranger Suarez. A lot of Phillies on my team, and I could have picked Harper too, but I'm going with Lugo in the American League. I've been a schoolboy guy all the way, and that was my original pick. I don't think anybody predicted Lugo, but I think Lugo's been the best pitcher in the American League. So Lugo and Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, again, without some traditional guys like Cole around and some injuries, etc., it's going to be different people. I did Lugo in the American League, and this feels like a kind of year. Like I hate to be stomping on the Mets' grave, but I made it Lugo Wheeler, just as a historic. Remember when they used to pitch?
You are going out of your way. Now I picked
Remember?
Wheeler at the beginning of the year for the Cy Young, and
Oh,
he's
Wheeler.
great.
Wheeler he's probably Suarez has probably outpitched him, but Wheeler has been great this year again.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's great.
And I think he's in the short conversation for this. He's never, I think he's starting an All-Star game. It's a nice perk for a guy who's been a dominant pitcher now for about 5 or 6 years. John, let's wrap it up. Relief pitcher each league.
Well, I'm going to take Clase with a 0.31 ERA. I mean, obviously Mason Miller's been amazing for the A's, and he's the most exciting, dynamic. But I mean, tough to argue with Clase, who leads in saves with that ERA. And Robert Suarez has been very, very dominant in the National League.
I'm sure you can't see it. I had Clase, and then I finally just crossed it out. I said it's the All-Star game. People want to see a guy like Miller who's striking out 51% of the hitters he faces.
It's who I want to see. It's not who people want to see.
Yes, and I agree with you on Suarez. John, but before we jump out here, you mentioned Soto and Judge. Give me a quick Yankee thought before we hop on with JJ Piccolo from the Royals.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are 1-2 in the MVP right now. I mean, I might give Soto, even though I picked Judge at the beginning of the year for MVP, I might give Soto a slight edge because he's been great start to finish. Judge had all-time month of May and is continuing that in June. Ultimately, I mean, I do think the Judge is the best position player in baseball, so I think he'll probably end up winning it. But right now, if we pick the MVP, I think I'd go Soto. And I mean, more and more the Yankees just have to keep these two together, right? I mean, this is a Yankee thing, right? To have the two superstars. I'm not going to say anybody's Gehrig and Ruth, or in at least in those 2 years, 60 and 61, Maris and Mantle. It's a pretty good combination. I think they're the two best hitters in baseball. So I feel like the Yankees have to keep him, and I think they will keep him. And again, I've said this before. I think people are reading too much into Hal Steinbrenner's comments about the payroll not being sustainable. They got a lot of money coming off the books, and I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think that Hal Steinbrenner's payroll conversation has nothing to do with Soto. It has to do with more margin guys at the margin, guys like Holmes and Gleyber Torres and Alex Verdugo, who they probably have natural replacements for on this team already. And I just will say one other thing is watching the Yankees win as much as they have. So I think Soto's the MVP also for the same reasons you do, which is there was no bad 3 weeks in it like Judge had in a short period of time.
Or three games.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been unbelievable.
And he's
from
also
start to
been
finish.
He's been
Yeah.
transformative. The Yankees
Yeah.
needed left-handed. They needed to strike out less, and they needed more unflappable. And I don't know if you could put it all in one game. It was like a time capsule game this season for him yesterday. He goes left on left homer off of Snell. He goes off of one of the best closers in the sport to win a game. It was all out there for him. And I think great players make it easier for supplementary players to play at a higher level, because they don't have to do everything. And I think part of the growth of Volpe, the flourish of Verdugo, Trevino coming back, etc., is that Soto and Judge are together as the weightlifters, making it easier for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, they're the two best, arguably the two best players in the league. Obviously, case could be made for Henderson, Witt, or Ramirez at this point, but I think they're the two best. They're the two MVP front runners. Soto combines consistency and flair. That's a good combination. And I just don't see how Hal Steinbrenner lets him leave. Ultimately, Hal did not let Judge leave. He was the driving force that made sure that he stayed. And I think that will be the case once again. We shall see. We've long speculated the Mets would be involved. I think there'll be other teams involved. I mean, we're talking about a 25-year-old free agent, right? I mean, look at Yamamoto. He'd never thrown a pitch in the major leagues. What was the big selling point beyond the fact that he's very talented and poised and competitive and athletic and all that? 25 years old. That is the key to Soto's free agency. And, not going to be shocked if the Dodgers are involved, the Phillies are involved. Things are working out pretty nice in New York, though. I mean, he is not given up anything about what he favors, what he wants to do. He looks like he's having a great time, but it's hard to read into it. But other than the fact that this is the big market, New York, and hard to see them letting him leave. Either one of these teams is going to sign him, but I do ultimately believe it'll be the Yankees.
It's a show for a long time from now, figuring out his free agency. But I wonder if the Nationals get sold.
Go back. Go back and get
go
them.
Back. Yeah, you have your cake and eat it too. You have all the prospects. A new owner gets to do a victory lap if they
have
ever
some great young players,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Abrams has gotten a little bit down, a little bit from where he was, but he's going to be a star.
Mackenzie Gore, James Wood. Yeah. Susan. That's it. It's just been on my mind. I figured I'd throw it out this way. When it happens 7 months from now, we'll go back and go, hey, remember when Joel said that? Anyway, John, you did okay with your all-star picks.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
we
right.
agreed. That's why you think I did okay, right? Because we agreed on almost everything.
We agreed on a lot of it. I think we're also in agreement that we're happy we have JJ Piccolo, the president of baseball operations of the very, very surprising Royals. We'll talk to him about that surprise and more if you stick with us on the show with Joel, Sherman, and Jon. John and I are so happy to be joined by JJ Piccolo, the president of baseball operations of the Kansas City Royals. He's been with the organization through 2006, was part of those terrific teams in 14 and 15, including the one that beat the Mets in 15 to win the World Series. And now he's part of a great turnaround this season. JJ, 106 losses last year, You're 36 and 25 right now. If the season ended today, we know it doesn't. After 61 games, you'd be the second wild card. You're playing the team ahead of you, Cleveland, for a few games in Cleveland over the next few days. Just as a way to start here, the turnaround in some ways is fueled. You guys spent sixth most money in free agency this offseason, and there's a significant hint there in Lugo, help in Waka, help in Hampson. Why was there that turnaround to go ahead and put at least a financial foot on the gas pedal?
Yeah, well, we felt like, although our record wasn't good, we felt like we had a nice little base of players, young players that were starting to come into their second and third and fourth years in the major leagues. And, we didn't play well the first 4 months of the year last year at all. I mean, the first 2 months were really tough, and then we started to get some footing. And then the last 2 months, we thought it was more representative of what we could do. So when you looked at our club and the lack of experience, it certainly felt to us like this might be a situation where if we can sign some free agents and, add to this club in a very smart way, be efficient with our spending, really focus on makeup, try to hit on somebody that's got some upside, and really just bring some experience alongside of the core that we thought we could be productive with. And, the thing that, when it was all said and done, it was kind of neat. It wasn't intentional. Every guy that we signed has had some sort of experience in the playoffs. And in the phone conversations we had with the free agents, they just want to know why we thought we could win. And a lot of it started with Salvi and Bobby Witt Jr. So that's a good place to start. And conversations went well, and we were fortunate to get some guys.
I'm sure, JJ, you knew you'd be better than last year. You had a young team. You made a lot of signings. Did you think you'd be this good? Because right now you're on pace to win probably mid-90s. I haven't done the calculations on it, but you guys have been really good to this point.
Yeah, it would a lot. We knew a lot of things would have to go really well for us to win, say, 85 games or more. But really where it started so far is we've stayed healthy. We lost Waka. It's going to be a short period of time with an unfortunate, batted ball situation. And Alec Marsh, also same thing, batted ball. Missed a couple starts, but Daniel Lynch has stepped in very nicely and done a great job for us. But overall, our health has been good. And I think that's a big part of why we've been able to have some consistency. We just sort of had a up and down 2 weeks. We won 8 in a row, and then we lost 6 out of 7. So the last 2 weeks have been a little bit of a roller coaster. But by and large, the health has been a big part of that success. And hopefully, if we stay healthy, we can keep competing. But the messaging's been simple. Let's go day to day. It's June 2nd, June 3rd now. We got a long way to go. But if we go day to day and we can stay healthy, we like the team that we have.
JJ, it's always easier to start with a 10-pole player, and you obviously have it in Bobby Witt Jr., who would be in the short list for AL MVP if that conversation were being held right now. You and ownership made a big commitment to him before the season, I believe a little over $288 million over 11 seasons. Why? Why was he the guy to kind of be the face of this franchise moving forward for the next decade plus?
Well, we feel like Bobby is a really, really exceptional talent. And there's a lot of talent across the major leagues. But when you take his talent and then you take his makeup, his drive, his sort of innocence, the way he plays the game. I mean, he just really he's driven to win. He shared that with us in the beginning part of the negotiations. I don't want to be somewhere where I don't feel like I can win. And you look at the bloodlines, you look at the, knock on wood, there's been no health history with him. And really, we just thought he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to do. This, without putting too many lofty expectations on home runs or whatever, but there's no telling what he can do in the game. But also his dedication to the defense. There was a lot of knocks on him as a shortstop going into last year. He knew that, but he was very driven to get better. And now he's become one of the better shortstops defensively in the game. But when it comes down to it, Joel, it's really just the makeup of the player. He's a winner. You got to have some marquee piece to build around if you want to sustain success for a number of years. And Bobby checked off so many boxes that we felt like there was very little risk in signing him long term.
Seth Lugo, he was here in New York, and he was a really good setup man. They gave him a little bit of a tryout to start. It didn't work out here. He was obviously pretty good in San Diego last year. You really stepped out for him. 3 years, $45 million. That looks like a major bargain at this moment. But when you signed him, it didn't look that way. What did you see in him? And are you surprised at all? At this point, he looks like the AL Cy Young one. Again, we're fairly early in the season. A lot can happen. But as we sit here today, he's probably the Cy Young leader.
Well, he's been exceptional. He's really performed far better than we would have imagined. But we're learning a lot more about him. I think what attracted us to him the most was having that 1 year under his belt as a starter. We were in that camp 2 years ago going in the offseason that he could start, but we weren't convinced that would be the case, and we weren't in a place financially or where our timeline to win was at that time to take that type of risk. But after 1 year starting, and at least in our opinions, he got better as the season went on. We thought he was a prime target. He also, from a financial standpoint, we felt like we needed 2 starters to add to this rotation, and he fell right in that realm where we could sign him and potentially sign another guy. But he's been more than we could have imagined. But I think the thing we've learned the most about him, he's a student of the game, and he's really taken this pitching staff along with Waka under his wings, and he wants to be a tutor. He wants to be a mentor. And that's had as much effect on other guys and our wins as much as what he's doing every 5th day. So it's been very healthy for us to have him in our clubhouse.
Yeah, it seems from a distance that your rotation has been the strength of your team, with Lugo leading the way. You mentioned Waka. Yeah, Brady Singer seems to have straightened out after a problematic last year. Alec Marsh. But you made a great trade last year. And by the way, a trade that worked for both teams. I'm not sure the Rangers win the World Series without Aroldis Chapman on the team. He really stabilized their bullpen at a moment they needed it during the regular season, and they went to him in the postseason. But you got Cole Ragans, and he has also interesting or problematic injury history, but you took a gamble on talent. Why, and why is it working out?
Well, where we were last year, and it was really about this time those discussions picked up, we knew we had to start addressing our pitching and any starting pitching in particular. Texas, like any deal, Texas had a need in the bullpen. They were willing to move quicker rather than wait through the deadline. Aroldis was throwing the ball exceptionally well up till early June, so we were in a good spot as far as getting some return on him. But it was really the fact that we thought Cole Ragans could be a starter. We've seen him a lot over the years prior to injury, post-injury. He pitched really well in spring training in 23 and ended up making that team out of the bullpen. But we thought a transition back to the starting rotation and the pitching position we were in, it was a great fit. Again, a lot like Lugo, until you're with a person, you don't know as much about him. But he's another one that's really driven. He's dealt with adversity. He's kind of a sponge in trying to learn and tinker and get better. But he fit what we needed when we're thinking about starting pitching in 24, 25, 26, all those years of control. So it was an ideal fit. So we've been very fortunate and happy to have him.
Yeah, as Joel pointed out, you spent more than all but 5 teams in Major League Baseball already. I'm wondering how much room is there in the payroll. I believe Kansas City is the smallest market in the American League, not in baseball, but in the American League. Looking at your team and the stats and not doing any more than that, it looks like, obviously everybody needs a rotation, but it looks like maybe bullpen and outfield would be the 2 areas where you might want to address a little bit. Is that right? And do you have some flexibility in the payroll?
Yeah, as we stand here today, that they are the 2 areas. I do think there's some guys that are clearly underperforming in the outfield that can impact our offense. The nice thing is our offense is performing pretty well as a whole, so we've been able to sustain that a little bit. But long term, that may be an area we have to address. And then the bullpen. We like some of the guys that we signed in Will Smith and Stratton. We traded for Schreiber. Nick Anderson, and it's been a little bit of an up and down start to the season for them. But, we know that they'll rebound. They're veterans, but, right now in the back end of our bullpen, we're not striking a lot of guys out. So that's an area that we have to look at for sure. But we're in the beginning stages of that. And a lot of teams are trying to figure out right now where they are. where we are on June 1 may not be where we are on July 1, but if we are, we'll be aggressive. We know that teams get motivated when you add something to the club when you're in a race. And we have a lot of guys that committed to Kansas City because they wanted to win, and we're not going to turn our backs on them because they made the commitment to us.
Well, you kind of got that as you're speaking, there feels like just such a natural follow for that, JJ, is the history is not to go from 106 wins to full-fledged contention. It is a new world, though, with 6 playoff teams. And I don't think there's anything fake about you guys. You're tied for third in run differential in your league. I think you're at plus 74. What are the markers that you need to see in, say, the next 30 days to make a market like yours that knows it always has to protect the window? You don't want to just be good this year, obviously. Yeah. What are the markers, and just how far would you go if you hit the markers?
Yeah, I think if we can sustain what we're doing from a starting pitching standpoint, that clearly will keep us in games. And I don't foresee that slowing up. I mean, they throw a lot of strikes. They compete well. The other things that we feel good about is our defense is very solid. We're not beating ourselves, and we're pretty aggressive on the bases and athletics. So there's, our situational hitting has been outstanding. I mean, with runners in scoring position, I don't know what it is as of today, but it's about 60 points higher than our batting average with guys not in scoring position. So that may not be as sustainable, but the knack of scoring a run, which was a major issue for us last year, we seem to have figured that part out. But again, where we are in a month, are we within striking distance? Can we win our division? If those answers are all yes, then I think we owe it to our fans. We owe it to our team to try to add to the team. Now, the tough part is I think we're just coming into a window where we can be competitive for a number of years. So there are guys in our minor league system that we have to be careful about who we give up and why we're giving it up. And, when you look at players that may be available, not saying they won't be in the mix for us, but, the half-year rentals may not be the market we want to be in. If we can get somebody that's got a few more years of control that we see they can help our roster and keep us deep coming into 25 and 26, they may make more sense for us. And if we can do that, we'll certainly look to capitalize on those situations.
Yeah, I'm a big Sal Perez fan, and here he is in his mid-30s, approaching his mid-30s, and he's actually improved as a hitter, batting over 300 now. What has he done to improve as a hitter? And you've already given him 2 extensions. Is the third one in the offing? And is he going to be? And then there's been some speculation about trading him at some point. Obviously, you're in contention now. It's not happening now, but you consider him a Royal for life?
Yeah, I mean, Salvi has been very clear with everybody in the organization that he wants to be a Royal his entire career. But watching what he's doing this year from an offensive perspective has been really, really impressive. And a lot of it just comes down to swing decisions. He's not chasing as much as he did. He's getting into more hitters counts this year than he has in the past. It's almost like he's just matured and really understands what pitchers are trying to do to him and laying off of pitches that are out of zone early in the count. And then he's in good counts as he gets into the at-bat. So it's been really neat to see. I mean, he's performed so well. I don't know if he's going to win the batting title hitting 340. That's not really. But if he's producing, run producer, hitting some homers, getting the RBIs like he's done, that's outstanding. And then it does. We have him for next year. There's a club option for the following year. We do have to look at those things. We like Salvi. The city loves him. He loves being here. So there are a lot of things that say this may be something that can go a little bit further than the next couple of years on his contract. But we'll see as we get into the offseason, where we are. And, we know what Salvi's intentions are, where he wants to be, and we're open-minded to it.
JJ, I was struck by something, just go back to Seth Lugo. When he was in New York a few weeks ago, I was talking to him, and it just seems he's part of a group of relief pitchers who are pitching great, like who've turned into starting pitchers. Ronaldo Lopez on Atlanta, Jordan Hicks, Michael King, Zach Littell. There's this constant hunt for more starting pitching. Do you, just from 20,000 feet in your job, do you see this as an untapped area that, this race to turn guys into relievers might have been a mistake, and that there are a lot of starting pitchers if you kind of open up a pitching lab and say, I think we can help you with a third pitch now?
Yeah, I do think that we are starting to see it happen more often. I think that what we got to be careful with is certain. You got to know the mentality of the pitcher. So you both know starting pitchers have a mindset, a preparation, a routine that they have to have and follow in order to have success. So that's part of it. But then you just look at pitch repertoire. I mean, if guys have 2 to 4 pitches, 2-pitch guys are going to stay in the pen. If they have 3, 4, 5 pitches, they're durable. There's reason to think that they'll stay healthy. Their deliveries are in line and you're not concerned. I think some of these guys are more of the, I'll call them pitchability types. They have feel, they have that gift to throw strikes and have feel for their pitches. The other thing is a team, when you make a decision, like San Diego did, made a great decision with Seth, you got to be willing to do it. You're spending money to try this out. Atlanta did it this year with Lopez. We faced Michael King yesterday. So you got to have conviction, when you're acquiring a player or paying a free agent, whether it's trade or free agency, however you get them, you got to have a conviction about doing that and committing to it. And what's the window and what's the leash to see if it'll work. But there is a high demand, short supply on starting pitching. So if you have somebody checks off some boxes that you think fit the qualities of starting pitcher, you're going to see more teams do it.
You've been a Royal for a long time. Certainly were there in the heyday. Rare small market team to win the World Series, and obviously did it over the Mets. What do you most recall about the 2015 World Series? I guess here people would recall Matt Harvey pitching that great game and then staying in the game. And I guess it's debatable whether that should have happened. But from the Royal perspective, what do you recall from the World Series?
Well, it was the Hosmer sprint to home on the throw from third to first, and he took a big risk. And, just actually recently we had our 10-year reunion of the 14 team, and, we rehashed a lot of those things. And, there was a relentlessness about that team. There was an aggressiveness about that team. Base running was a big part of it. We took a lot of risks, and there in the biggest moment on the biggest stage, Haas takes that risk and ends up working out, and ultimately we win the World Series. But that's the moment, because I was in the stands yelling, "No, don't go!" and there he is, and he ends up being safe. So, but that's Haas, and a lot of guys on that team were very aggressive, and right down to the biggest moment, they weren't afraid to make a mistake.
As a way to wrap up, JJ, you're part of this. The AL Central kind of has not been a very good division for the last few years, but your rise, Detroit's playing a little better, and I still think there's room for them to grow. Minnesota's the defending champ, and I think they're still over 500. You open in Cleveland after a year of not being good. They seem to be back to being good even without Tito Francona there, and Stephen Vogt in charge as their manager. Obviously, the White Sox are not in a good position right now. What do you think of your division? And as a way to go out, what's it going to take to actually finish on top of it?
Yeah, highly competitive. I think we all felt like Minnesota was probably the team to beat coming into it, and they, they're good. They're a solid team. Cleveland they've been so impressive with what they've done. And then Detroit, we've always had our hands full with Detroit over the last couple of years. So they are teams that are on the come. But what stands out to me, there's some balance. All of those teams. There's pitching. There's defense. There's not no high payrolls in the division. So I think the concentration, can't speak for other front offices, but it seems like we're all thinking the same way. How do we put together the deepest roster we can, protect ourselves the best we can, compete and play hard every day? That seems to be what clubs are doing, and it's been great. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a neat story. In the end, I think the team that's going to come out on top is the one that probably, this sounds so boring, but stays healthy and executes the best. I think it could be a fun second half of the year in our division with a lot of back and forth, and there's going to be some spikes where, again, like I said, we just went through it. A great week and a terrible week. if you can withstand that, and whoever can deal with the most adversity, because I think we're all, other than Minnesota, and I think Cleveland has some more veteran guys, fairly young. So learn, if you can handle some adversities and the ups and downs and just keep your eyes on what's going on today, it could be a lot of fun. So don't know if I'm really answering that, but I do think health is a big part of it. That's always going to be influential in any divisional race.
Well, JJ, obviously everyone wants to finish first at the end of the season. I'm sure that's your goal, but coming from 106 losses to where you guys are right now, as we speak, 11 games over 500 in a wild card spot and challenging and playing well. Congratulations on that. And JJ, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
No problem. I enjoyed it, and thank you.
John and I, of course, thank JJ Piccolo, president of baseball operation of the Royals, for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'm going to go error. Last week, I think I did an error for the Cubs only. I'm going to take all of Chicago this week. And kudos to Jay Kuda on
You got
Twitter.
your Northwestern shirt on when you're doing this, right?
Well, I know. I'm loyal and upset. I mean, he's got these stats, which I'll mention a couple of. In the last 3 weeks, in wins, the Sox are 30th. And by the way, they are on pace to tie the 1962 Mets at this point. Cubs are 29th. Runs per game, White Sox 30th, Cubs 29th, and I can go on batting average. They're basically 29th and 30th in every category. It's a sad state of affairs in the lovely city of Chicago, Illinois.
Well, they did have a former guest of the show, Tommy Pham, ready to throw down yesterday, John. They lead the league in that. Cool guests who are ready to throw down.
We only have exciting guests on this show.
Yes.
We love Tommy Pham.
We're going to match. I'm going to do an error. We were both in the press box yesterday watching the Mets, and look, there's a lot of different ways to frame how this team is, as we speak, 9 games under 500 and one of the most disappointing teams. They might not have thought they were going to win 90, but they thought they'd win in the 80s and be in play, and it's a long season. Maybe things will change, but I just went and looked. John, who do you think leads the Mets in pitching war?
Oh, boy. I'm going to guess... I would have guessed Severino, but I guess that's going to be wrong.
So the answer is Jose Butto, who's 88th in the major leagues in pitching war, who's been optioned out twice, including in mid-May, and hasn't, started. He started 7 games. That's who's leading. The leader in war for the Mets is Lindor and Harrison Bader are tied at one point. They're tied. They're 96th in the major leagues. Would you like a shot at who's third in the Mets in war? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I would think, Alonso's got a few home runs. Why not Alonso?
Would you believe it's Mark Vientos?
Well, he's been really good.
He's been really good, but he's played 15 games.
I'm looking on the positive. Well, good for him.
But
nobody who's been there from the beginning has been great.
Well, that's the thing is just I keep looking for ways to frame how bad their moneyed players are. The guys who got contracts pre-David Stearns. And this, like Jose Butto as the leader in pitching war, and Vientos third instead of Nimmo or Alonso or Marte or McNeil. Like, where are these guys? Just watching it yesterday, there's such a Bermuda Triangle in that right side where balls go for hits. The defense is bad. The bullpen feels blown out before, just past Memorial Day. John, maybe they have the ability to recover. They do have talented players. They do, I think, have some pitching depth in the minor leagues to perhaps help them over the long season. But they've earned 9 under 500, and they are my error for the week.
Well, I can certainly understand it, and I was there. No excuses, because I wasn't even working, and I was there to watch the Mets. You were at least working and writing a column, or probably 2 or 3 columns. And I think you remarked to me in the 4th inning, I'm looking forward to seeing Jock Peterson hitting the home run off of, I don't remember who you predict. Ottavino, I guess. Yeah. You were, close enough. We got to give you credit there. I obviously have been more optimistic than most. I predicted they'd be in the playoffs 2 weeks ago. I'll probably have to take a mea culpa for that. I think I already gave myself an error a couple of weeks ago for it. I'm less optimistic now than ever, and it's the bullpen. Look, they've lost Diaz, Raley's gone, Smith out. We know Lopez is gone, and basically the guys who are left are not performing. So, I mean, it's basically a crapshoot at the end of the game at this point. And Diekman was elected yesterday, and he's obviously not a closer. So, they got to work their way back in. They're going to have to get very lucky, or they're going to have to come up with some relievers somewhere because they don't have it right now.
Yeah, Ketel Marte. It wasn't when I picked. It was a ninth inning homer. It was Ketel Marte off of Diekman, and yeah, John, they're just not a very, very good baseball team right now. It's especially in comparison to what's going on the other side of what I still call the Triborough Bridge with the Yankees. They're not even as good as the Royals. Again, I want to thank JJ Piccolo for joining us. I want to thank Jake Brown and Tommy Hogan, our producers who help us through each week. The New York Post YouTube page. If you'd like to see how purple John's Northwestern shirt is, it is his color. It is his alma mater. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, drop a review, and please stick with us on the show with Joel, Sherman, and Jon Heyman.